but I've actually found that horror has been a really good medium to tell different kinds of stories and for the exploration of various different sort of personal beliefs, or whether it be,
Mhm.
exploring grief, trauma, existential fears, things like that. Like there's a horror movie that came out called The Beast Within that stars Kit Harington, and that was kind of like a big allegory for stopping familial violence and family trauma and things like that. So I found that through my journey of going through the horror genre, it's actually a little bit deeper and a little bit more creative than what I first thought it was. So could I get your thoughts on how horror can be like the vehicle or the vessel for things like that for people, especially coming from a writer like yourself?
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's kind of been the quandary of horror creators for such a long time is even when you have a movie like a Hereditary, or I mean, Get Out got some accolades, but Hereditary, or you have these movies that are have A-list talent, working on them, doing amazing jobs. The genre's always kind of been seen as like, the black
Yeah,
sheep
yeah,
of
yeah.
the film industry. And, again, that's why I fell in love with Nightmare on Elm Street, because I read Fangoria's like the oldest kind of horror Bible that's been around as far as like interviewing people. And so I would read all these interviews with Wes Craven and see how much thought he put in to the film, and how the film was about like kind of the sins of the parents coming back upon the children, and, not being believed, and, allegories for, a lot of these films are allegories for like dealing with trauma or grief, and sometimes they're just fun and bloody. But even at the core of the fun and bloody ones, there is that theme of good versus evil. And usually in horror, the final girl or the final boy in horror films is somebody who's going through stuff, is somebody who in this world of the film is kind of in the background, or kind of they're not the most popular, they're not you know, in movie terms, they're not the hottest, most popular person in school or the most athletic. They're usually a representation of somebody who's kind of unseen or kind of dismissed as like, oh, that's just a normal person. Like that's not the beauty queen, or or anything like that. So there's always been this undercurrent and even the most basic horror films is the empowerment of somebody who doesn't have a lot of power in the world of the film, and is kind of dismissed, and that person rises to save the day. So there's wish fulfillment there in a way, um, because most of the horror people that I meet, like, I'm always surprised. Not anymore, because now we have the internet. People can
Mm.
see interviews with me, but early, before the internet, people would meet me and be like, "Wow, you're a lot nicer and sweeter than I thought you." Like I didn't know what you're going to be like, and it's like most of my writer, director, actor friends who love the genre are like the nicest, sweetest people, because they being an artist already kind of makes you an outsider as far as like respectability and people saying, "Oh, get a real job." And so add horror on top of that, and you're kind of like an outsider in an outsider career. So, I love that, I've always, and it's not, I never lead with the message usually, in my stuff, like, but, I do deal with like themes of like bullying, like in Tamara, or obviously Final Destination is about mortality, and, you can't cheat death. Like that's, it's an inevitability. And, as I've gotten older now, because I have always been more fun concept horror, and with layers in there, like it's not like, I don't, I try to really write characters that are universal, or phenomena like Dead Awake, which is about sleep paralysis, which is something that people really experience, or Don't Look Back, which is, really deals with the bystander effect of people
Mm.
in a group seeing something bad happen. A lot of them won't intervene because of different reasons, psychological reasons. But uh, as I've gotten older, and especially as I've seen the world kind of get more divisive, like my last script, which we're right now, it's the first original thing I've written for myself, as opposed to being hired to write it for somebody else. And this one, it was just like I've got all this like, agita, for lack of a better word, inside me about how the world is going right now.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of a global thing, and it's really the lack of empathy that we have. And I know a lot of that it sprung out of COVID, when a lot of us were so isolated, and it was kind of a traumatic world event where none of us knew what was going on and had no control over our lives. And got locked up in our own homes. And,
Mm.
again, that's just the hard realities of it, aside from the fear of COVID itself. It's like, and we've never, I think that really separated us, you know, because we were all isolated for so long. And then, so people started going down rabbit holes. And, the worst thing you can do is be in your own brain alone for a
Yeah.
long period of time. And so we've disconnected so much is on a person to person level, um, that there's just so much hate and division that is a lot of it's just being manufactured, in my opinion, like to
Mm.
keep us keep us engaged, but in a negative way. This new script I've written is very much deals with that kind of hatred in a really cool way. So this is the first time where I really like just kind of, not to be graphic, but cut a vein open and just like let it bleed on the page, as far as like, okay, I've not wanted to deal with like the shit that I've dealt with as a gay person of color who grew up poor and am also in a minority religion in America, which
Mm.
any four of those things would get you enough grief, but to have them all together, and I walk through life dealing with it in a very positive way and seeing the best in people and being patient and being kind, but there's a lot that you have to bury to kind of keep that up.
Yeah. And I think it's really, what I'm hearing is it's really good that you have this vehicle of writing to sort of pursue that sort of passion in you, and those concerns that you have as well.